Welcome back to The Rancher's Voice, the podcast where the heart of agriculture meets the pulse of today's industry. From policy changes to leadership stories in the Western lifestyle, The Rancher's Voice dives into the stories that matter most to ag producers. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to this week's episode of The Rancher's Voice. I am your host. I wasn't on last week. And my co-host today is Keni Reese.
Yes.
She's become a frequent co-host for us.
Yes, I have been around a lot lately.
Yes, we love it. And then today we have a really exciting guest on. So today we have Zoe Ann Stoltz with us. She was a reference historian at the Montana Historical Society for a number of years, and you have a pretty in-depth knowledge of Montana brands.
Well, I don't know about that, but I do like them. And I like to talk about them.
Well, perfect.
We cannot wait.
You're in the right place. So thank you for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your time at the Historical Society, how you got into it, all of those details?
You bet. Well, I don't know how far back you want me to go. I was born in Miles City and educated on the east part of the state, graduated from high school in Hardin, and then married a Libby logger. And spent a long time up in Libby, had 3 daughters, raised them up there, and they're scattered across the state right now. But I had a little schooling underneath my belt, and so once the last one left for school, I decided to go back to school, and I got my bachelor's degree in U.S. history. And then in Missoula, I got a degree in Western U.S. history, or with a focus in Western U.S. history. Then, a couple of years later, the Historical Society was looking for a reference historian, and I had a friend call and just really railed on me that I hadn't applied. And he was emphatic that it was a job made for me, and I like to think he was right. Mm-hmm. And I, was there from 2006 to the fall of 23.
Okay.
And at which time I started getting tired and cranky. So it is for any historian, it's a job made in heaven. Mm-hmm. Again, I worked for the Research Center for the Historical Society, which is one of 5 programs at the Historical Society. And at the Research Center, you can access the photo archives, the Montana State Archives, or the Historical Society Special Collection Library. And the books date back to, the biggest tome that I can think of was this section of Montana was in the Idaho Territory before it was Montana. Right. And we had that session in print, of course, because that had something to do with Montana. Yeah. But it was heaven. There you go.
And what do you do as a reference historian? What does that job entail?
Well, I like to joke, and I guess really it's really true. People will ask outrageous questions to just, I want to know a straightforward question, the lazy K hanging Y history. And sometimes people do want the meaning of life, and we have to stop at that. But I helped a 5th grader figure out how to use a wood cook stove with all the drafts and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And I'm very glad and proud to say that Ivan Doig would do research at our facility before he passed. So just anything to do with Montana history. I certainly don't know much of it off the top of my head, but I like to think that I could figure out where to find that information.
Yeah. So you were like a professional rabbit hole digger, basically.
Oh my gosh. No, well, yes and no, but colleagues and I would joke about the rabbit holes because they are inevitable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you'd be just hot on the trail of finding somebody homesteaded outside of Lewistown, and then all of a sudden something else crops up and you think, oh no, and you just dive into that. And
Yeah.
then I've had colleagues shake me and say, "You've got to get back to the top."
Focus.
You gotta dig your way up to the top. That's great.
So you said your degree was in U.S. history and then your master's in Western history.
Those were the focuses,
Obviously, you're in Montana.
Yes.
So did you know a lot of Montana history before, or when you started this job, were you like, okay, I do really want to focus on Montana history?
That's a good question. I certainly knew more than the average, and I'm going to chalk it up not just because I was from Montana, but because of my age. And I would often talk to people who were from out of state, students, and they just, the only thing they knew about was the Battle of Little Bighorn.
Right.
And I just, there's so much more there. So it was a love. My parents loved history, and I'm sure that gave me a nice basis. But darn good question.
Yeah. Just interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what were some of the most interesting or surprising things that you ran into while working at the Historical Society?
I'm sure you could write a book.
Yeah.
Gosh. There were a lot of unusual requests, and I'm going to try not to go there. What the heck?
I love it.
Get into it. We love it.
I'm trying to. I don't want to make fun of any of our patrons, but there were several interesting that are on my mind. Probably the one of the top was a gentleman called from out of state, and he started asking about ranches in Montana. And he said, well, the one I'm looking for has mountains in the background.
Well, yeah. That tracks.
Pause. And it was owned, and they raised racehorses. And it just wasn't going anywhere. And finally I said, sir, I just need more specifics. And he said, well, my girlfriend is a psychic. And she's been having visions that we were married around the turn of the century. And we had a ranch in the mountains, and we raised racehorses. And so at that time, I just said, well, we're gonna have to wait until your girlfriend has more visions before we can figure that one out. But another one I remember with a smile was someone came in and wanted to know about the bombing of Miles City.
Oh.
The bombing of Miles City. And it had taken place during the Second World War, and I just remember, no. And so I called my dad, of course, what every professional historian does. You call your dad when you don't know what you're trying to find.
Exactly.
We all do.
Who was born and raised in Miles City.
Yeah.
So I asked him, he said, oh, yeah. And he what did he say? We were out of town. I think he said we were out of town because his family went to the shipyards on the West Coast during the war. But he said, I don't know much about it. And so I started doing research, and it is a great story of, I just don't know if it's typical Montana, but I was raised believing that Montanans like to handle things themselves and did what was necessary. But come to find out, what's the two? So there's the Yellowstone, and it's not the Mussel Shell. I'm trying to think of what the other river is that converge there around Miles City, and someone will have to look that up for me. But
I feel bad that I don't know.
But it was spring, and there were some serious ice jams, and the city. There were parts of the city that were getting flooded, and so. First, a couple of gentlemen got together, and one flew a plane over, and another dropped dynamite onto the ice jam. Well, sadly, that did not work. And it wound up getting to the governor, and just interesting things happened. And there was an Air Force base in North Dakota that sent a bomber.
Oh, wow.
And they bombed the Yellowstone
That is
And it
serious
worked?
business.
And it worked. It worked. And the pilot and all of his crew landed and met the people of Miles City. And there's so much more about this story. But that was one of those lessons. I just thought, don't scoff at these.
Yeah.
Say what? Requests. You just never know. And call Dad, of course.
And call Dad.
And
That's
call
the
Dad.
main lesson there.
But there have since been, I wrote a blog on it, and there have since been some articles on the Historical Society blog about that. There were a couple neighborhoods that were flooded, but just great. That will always go down as one of my favorite.
Yeah, that is
That's
so
They
I've never
brought
heard that.
a big bomber in to get rid of the ice jam.
You gotta do what you gotta do around here.
Right? Wow. Wow. Those poor fish.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
do you think that there are any aspects of historical research in Montana specifically, obviously, that should get more attention than they do,
Oh, my word. All of them.
besides the bombing in Miles City?
Yeah, all of them. One of my, I can't say favorite because that's not the appropriate word, but I think one of the most important stories is the march that the Northern Cheyenne did. They were taken south, and again, I'm sorry, I'm not well versed in this, and they escaped, and they had women and children, and they headed north. They had hundreds, if not thousands, of miles to go. Again, I can't remember how far south they were taken. And we all hear about the Cherokee Trail of Tears, but the Northern Cheyenne went through hell to get back to Montana.
Yeah.
Back to Montana, and the group split at one point. My memory, if it serves right, there were some disputes about some decision making and whatnot, and so one group had kept going north, headed north to Montana, and they did eventually make it to Fort Keogh, which is outside of Miles City. Boy, I'm talking about Miles City a lot.
That's okay.
But their struggles, and I've read a few, not interviews, but stories from the, especially a young woman. She was young at the time, and she talks about her brother dying, protecting her from the soldiers as they try to get them back to where they were supposed to be, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And so few people know about that. There are hundreds of stories like that out there. Certainly lots of Native American stories, because their stories have only just started being told and listened to, I think, by the general population. But also the homesteading stories. One of my favorite quotes from a homesteading journal is, "These are not the good old days." Everything has just such a wonderful story, and how lucky we are to be here. And whether we're here in Montana or our ancestors, if you're white, made it to the United States, they were amazing that they took that step, and the fact that they survived and succeeded were testament to that. So go out, get your family story, and then expand. Go down those rabbit holes.
Yeah. Well, in that, a weird rabbit hole that I think about a lot is like how much history we know from people just writing it down. So I was going to ask you, like, in that story, and that I'm assuming was a firsthand account, like,
Yes.
is that a diary entry that somebody wrote down?
Yeah.
Is that, and even for the Native American population who might not have been well versed in English, like, are they writing that in because of a Western influence, or are they writing that in their own language, or like how does that all work? Like I'm so
Yeah,
ignorant to
that's a
that.
great
Yeah, that's a
question.
good question. And first, I have to say I am not a Native American scholar,
Yeah.
and I don't think I could presume to talk to them.
Yeah.
But they all, I believe, they all have junior colleges now,
Mm-hmm.
and their histories are being kept,
Yeah.
and it's up to them, I guess, if they're going to share them with the rest of
Right.
us. But yeah, those junior colleges have done a great job.
Mm-hmm.
Each group has their historians,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's great. But as far as the white culture, the Historical Society has reams of diaries
Yeah.
and different ways of stories, of maintaining stories. Our old newspapers. One of the things I like to remind people is I've seen people get into them and think that they're gossipy because they have social pages.
Yeah.
And, so-and-so had a card
I
party.
wish we still had.
And, but they had no Facebook.
Right.
Yeah.
They had no way of texting. That was their way of maintaining
Social
Community.
status.
social.
Yeah.
Good job. Yeah. Social status. And just, of course, a lot of times I think they cater to the more affluent families. But at the same time, those women spent a lot of time playing
did.
cards. Or, a knitting club.
Yeah.
So, there's been a lot written down, but do listen to your elders
Yeah.
when it comes to old stories. I can guarantee you that your parents are going to pass, and after they've passed, you're going to come up with a bunch of questions you wish you'd have asked them.
Yeah. Well, and one thing my dad always says is like history repeats itself.
Oh,
like,
absolutely. Mine too.
Don't think that you were experiencing something for the first
Yes.
time. Like some other, like it has happened before in some way, shape, or form. And like,
Well, even like your point about, people focusing on in the newspapers and social pages, like the more affluent people in society. Well, don't we do that with social media and celebrities and all of that? Like
And
it's the
influencers,
same
yeah.
thing. It's
Yeah.
just 200 years later.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like it's
Exactly.
just, it's really interesting.
It is interesting. That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of to switch gears and start in on the history of Montana brands.
Okay.
Let's maybe this is a basic question. Hopefully it
yeah.
is, but like, what did early brands look like, and how were they recorded? Kind of on that recording piece.
Okay. Well, now see here when we start getting early brands, we have to. What are you talking early? Are you talking
Montana territory.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
That would
Montana.
be my question.
Yeah.
That's where I would like to start.
Very good. For one thing, the brands look very similar. The one point that I've learned from old cowboys is that, of course, the blacksmiths were very expensive. Their services are very expensive, and so there are a lot of straight lines.
Yep.
Like the box brand or the first brand in the brand books, the Poindexter or Square and Compass.
Yes.
It's two V's.
Yep.
And so, but there are other brands, and many of them are used today, and I'm not sure you could pick them out of a lineup, which are the oldest.
Right.
I'm sure there are some old cowboys that could.
Gotcha.
But
Yeah.
I couldn't do that. And the first brand laws were passed by the first Montana territorial legislation. And interestingly, they were, I want to say they were 1865. I'm going to look at this up. So Poindexter and Orr, wow.
Because I believe, and I might be totally mistaken here, and we need to do a whole episode. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Okay.
We need to
Okay.
do a whole
Yeah.
episode of the history of Montana stock growers, because I
We
think
do.
we were
Instrumental.
formed and instrumental in the development of those first brand laws, if I'm not mistaken.
Certainly, they came out of the need
Yes. Yeah.
for because what was going on the books, I think Montana was learning as she
Yes.
grew.
Yes.
But the first brand laws were in 1865.
Okay.
And I'm going to look it up so I'm not
Yeah.
wrong, so you don't get 100 calls about that woman doesn't
comments
know
will
what
let us
she's
know, right,
talking
guys?
about. There we go, legislation. Okay, so I am looking at territory of Montana, February 1st, 1865. And what they did at that time was decree that people needed to go to their county seat and record brands.
Gotcha.
And so we're not talking about a time when there were a lot of fences.
Right.
So it wasn't too long before the legislature realized that that wasn't going to work because someone in one county might be using the box brand and someone else in the adjacent county was going to be using them. And so then in 1871 and 72, the legislature created a general office recording brands and marks. And here is really a cool part. So the general office was to be at the seat of government, okay? Then people who were recording a brand needed to go to their local, I'm going to call them auxiliary offices, probably a clerk's, not a clerk of court, but a clerk in
County
their
clerk.
courthouse would have given them an application and sent that into the central office. But here, you've heard of the brand books, and they are one of Montana's biggest treasures. And when I say big, they're really big.
Yes.
So,
Yeah,
but
we've had to go
that's-
through a few of them.
with the 1871 and 72, it became law not just the creation of a central office, but that office maintain a book suitable for the purpose, which shall be free to the inspection of all persons interested. And to me, that's just amazing that, and the brand office has maintained those books since January of 1872, and it's just phenomenal. But at this point, I'm going to put a promo in, but let's not use those books to death. I think it's amazing, and they deserve credit for maintaining those records. But they're online now,
Yes.
so we don't have to go and drool over those books. We shouldn't go and drool in those books.
Yes, I've had to search through the online versions of those books a few times
yes.
because, like you said, people calling you guys with, rabbit hole questions. We also get those, and one of the main ones is like my historical family came at some time, or we have this historical brand, who owns it now, and that kind of stuff. So I have to walk people through either historical brands books or the current brands book, like quite often, actually.
It's really
Yes.
interesting.
Which is, I love when we get those questions because it's kind of like I'm a uninformed history buff, I guess. Like I don't do the actual research, but I think it's very interesting. So yeah, we get quite a bit of those questions
Yes,
too.
yes.
And I'm always either, if I can't figure it out, I point them towards the Historical Society or the Department of Livestock, because I'm like, those two groups will be able to get you into the right book at least.
Good
So,
for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, of course, we're now on we'd have a 10-year rotation where we re-record, and that was created during the homestead era. But before we get to that, we were talking about cowboys. So in the 1885 legislature is considered, so this is where you want to go to talk about
This is probably what I was talking about.
Yes.
earlier with
commissioners
Monty.
and
Yes.
stuff like that. And stock commissioners were created, but it was a result. It was, oh my gosh, wait a minute. Cattlemen are huge here in Montana.
Yeah. Yes.
And they pass laws about open range and not branding just any calf that comes your way and stuff like that. And that 1885 legislature is really worth going to. I think it'll make you very, very happy.
Yeah.
Lots of information.
Well, we mentioned a little bit some of these early brands. Do you have some anecdotal information on some of the earliest brands in Montana?
Boy.
Besides,
hear the
what was
stories.
Poindexter and Orr's.
Poindexter and Orr.
That was the first one, right?
Yes, and I
Okay.
want to say when we start again, it's you have to be specific when you're asking a historian about first, because when I'm asked about the first brand, well, it's like who's on first and what's on second.
Right.
Yep.
So are you talking about the first brand record or discussed, or the first animal we know that was marked? Well, Lewis and Clark
Yeah.
in 1805. Okay, that's in their journals. The first one for agriculture, and that's the Cross on a Hill, St. Mary's, and Father de Schmidt branded the livestock there.
Okay.
And then I've heard people claim that the 84 number was the first brand. Well, that was the first trademark, for lack of a different term, and I'm not even sure trademark's the right word, but there was a gentleman, and he was a vigilante, and his nickname was 84, and it had nothing to do directly with the vigilantes, except they wanted to award him or acknowledge him, and his name was Pitt, P-I-T-T. And they gave him unequivocal, limitless use of the number 84, whether it was livestock or a trademark or whatever he wanted. But he passed away within 10 years, I think. But then there's no doubt about it that whether you're looking at the images in the brand books or the written record, the square and compass is the first. But there are 155 other brands recorded that same day.
Okay.
And so, talking about people with affluence,
Yeah.
was it serendipitous that Poindexter and Orr were on top? We'll never know.
Right.
We will never know.
Interesting.
So there you go.
Wow.
Very interesting. I will talk about a couple brands.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Let's see if I can get to. My guess is you know about Poindexter and Orr. You've got some history there that you're aware of. And they were very successful.
Yeah.
Very, very successful.
And where were they out of, just for our listeners that maybe don't have the history?
South of Dillon.
Okay.
South of Dillon. And they came originally from the West Coast, and they were partners in livestock and sheep.
Okay.
And I think it was Orr. See, I'm gonna look up my notes. So, let's see. It was as early as 1963 that they began driving cattle through Idaho City and into the mining.
Okay.
And of course, they're all about feeding the miners.
Right.
And they got wind of the grasslands that were available. And so Orr did come to Bannock with some cattle. And he explored the area, and by the next year, they were running a lot of their cattle and sheep in Montana.
Okay.
And it's really quite the story. Now, the square and compass, they were both Masons,
Oh.
and so those are Masonic symbols,
Yep.
and that's all I can tell you about that.
Interesting.
But they did eventually become the most broadly used dealers in horses, cattle, and sheep
that's cool.
in the territory.
Well, our mid-year meeting this year was in Butte, and we had a Butte historian on.
Yes.
I don't know, a couple months ago now, and obviously much of that was about the history of mining. So I just think this is a really interesting way to tie our industry together. as far as the Montana Territory and how we all got here and why we all matter. And I just think it's very cool.
Mm-hmm. It is. I like to also point out that I've always thought it was the smart ones who decided to stop in the Gallatin or maybe
You can say that because you're from East.
North of Three Forks. There's some wonderful ranch company ranching and whatnot, but they were the smart ones who decided, whoa, we're going to feed the ranchers. I'm not going mining. And I think there was a little more stability in it, maybe. But it's a great story.
Yeah.
It's a great story.
It is.
Yeah. So, but one of my favorites. There's quite a few, I'm glad to say, or that might be a curse for you, but the Stadler and Kaufman brand, and you might think, what the heck is that? Well, we all are familiar with Charlie Russell's sketch of the last of 5,000.
5,000.
Yes. Well, the Stadler and Kaufman brand is the brand that's on that poor steer.
Oh.
And there's a great story about that. Stadler and Kaufman ran a lot of their cattle in the I'm going to say Judith Basin area and that area, right around there. And legend has it, and I think I'm going to say it's kind of close to the truth as far as I've been able to tell, but that one of them, Kaufman or his partner, had written a letter to a rancher who lived up there. And lo and behold, Charlie Russell used to spend time with this guy, especially in the winter. And so the rancher said, I don't know how to answer this. And this is during the nightmare winter that broke so many ranches. And Charlie Russell read the letter and said, how about if I draw you something and that he'll get the point across. Yeah. And so that bar R.
Okay.
Kaufman.
Yeah,
And
I've heard that story actually.
Have you?
Yes,
Okay.
quite a few times so for our listeners, the Montana Stock Growers Association owns the sketch of, it's not the official Last of the 5,000, but it is what's it called? There's a different name for it, but we own one of Charlie Russell's prints or paintings for that. And then that he then developed, so we own the thing that he sent to the ranch, the owner.
Sketch.
Yes, we own that. And then he built out the larger Last of the 5,000. So I love when people come into town, taking them to the Historical Society, because that's typically where it lives. Right now it's in Great Falls at the Charlie Russell Museum because the Historical Society is still being rebuilt. And I'm super excited for that to open.
Me too.
But that's truly one of my favorite things to show people when they come into town, is taking them there and being like, our association, our association owns that, and we have a print of it here in our office. So we talk about it and we see it every day. But,
I actually had a friend in town a couple weeks ago, and he drove up to Great Falls while we were working, and to go through the Charlie Russell Museum, and he actually talked about that print, and I was like, Fun fact. The Stock Growers actually owns that, and he thought that was the coolest thing ever. So
it's the coolest thing
it's
ever.
so neat,
And it is neat to be able to, I don't know that it's still such a part of the story.
Yes.
That I'm glad you're proud of it.
Yeah. No, we're very proud.
It's
I
good.
do hear some people joke sometimes, why does the Cattle Association own the sickliest looking cattle? And I totally understand that, but I'm like, you have to know the story, what you just told behind it, and then it makes sense.
Totally.
But yes, I've heard that story quite a few times, and it makes me happy every time I hear it. But, yeah.
It's really interesting.
And what a testament to the cattle industry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It still keeps going.
The cattle industry in Montana is strong in that sense of they go through just about everything here and can still survive. A testament to the cattle here, to the ranchers here. So yeah, it's a lot.
And it's been that way since whatever year he wrote that or drew that sketch, right? It's interesting.
So, 2. Wilson. is just the brand itself. It's 2 dots. You can't get any simpler than that. But he had his 2 dot brand, believe it or not, started vertically, one on top of the other, because he started. I think it might have been Jefferson Island. I better not say that for sure, but he started a little more east and south. Then he, of course, finally settled. Yeah, Jefferson County. Excuse me, and then he winds up near Martinsdale. He traveled around quite a bit until he wound up where 2 dot is located.
I was going to ask
outside of Harlow.
Yeah.
I was going to ask. Yeah, is this related to the actual 2
Dot
dot
It
town?
is, and it was essentially his little town, and it used to be. We used to have a hardware store. Used to be much more than a bar. Not to denigrate the bar. The bar has withstood the test of time. So, but that is another testament to just some. And I understand that his wife, I've not been able to find, that proof, but that she would go out on trails with him.
Wow.
And the roundups, and she would cook and whatnot. She was famous for her cooking. The tuning fork brand, I've got to bring a woman in here.
We love it.
So, a young woman by the name of Ida. What was her maiden name? Oh, and Ida Pound. She had a classical piano, and her dad came out and established a ranch on the Muscle Shell. Okay. So eventually, when he was established, he sent for her and her mom, and they caught the steamboat the far west. And it does have connections to the Battle of Bighorn, but we're not going there. And Ida and her mother, the folklore has it that the captain of the steamboat would not allow it; had to be latched to the deck. Oh. But she would play her piano during the trip up to Fort Benton. At which time, then her dad's waiting with her brothers and the crew, and I assume a lot of oxen to get that.
I would assume that too.
That back to the ranch. Eventually, she marries a gentleman by the name from Harlow, and she, according to the brand book, she records the brand that's shaped like a tuning fork. Gotcha. And she taught piano lessons for Big Timber youth. Her husband was a merchant in Big Timber. And I've always found it really interesting that that brand was always in her name.
Yeah.
So Ida, her married name was Busha.
Okay.
And that is a great story. The Will James, he was a Western artist and storyteller and a novelist, and he had a place outside of, my senior mind just went. He had a ranch in the Pryor Mountains, I believe. And when that ranch, I did some searching for the folks who owned the ranch in, I'm going to say probably, 2005, around there. And it was the same brands that he had owned had been handed down with the ranch.
Wow.
And I've always thought that was special too. Then we've got the 79 Ranch, Gary Cooper. It was the ranch that Gary Cooper's dad owned. And then a brand that belonged to Joe Proctor, who was a black cowboy. Came up from Texas and eventually settled outside of Forsyth, a long ways out of Forsyth. I've often thought his poor wife.
Not right in town.
Yeah.
But I thought he was an ex-slave, and I just thought what a symbol of of his independence,
Totally.
having his own brand.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's really cool.
amazing, yeah.
So I could go on for a long, long time. I have a lot of favorite brands.
I cannot blame you. With stories
Yeah.
like that, it's just so interesting to like dig into those because Stock Growers, for I think one of our anniversary years, developed a book called, we call it for short The Weak Ones, but it's has a longer name that involves the weak ones, but it's a book of centennial brands in Montana and their histories. I might have to just give you
I
one.
think I've seen it.
There we go. The weak
It's the weak ones turn back, the cowards never
Yes.
started.
Yes.
Oh,
And-
this is great.
Yes. And so it's basically a book of a bunch of Montana brands that are centennial brands. And then it kind of goes through the family's history, which is very interesting. Like I've read a few of those stories just in my own research. And then it kind of goes until like, I would probably say at least the 80s on some of these families. So it is a pretty
recent,
full picture. Yeah. But I love this book. Like we were talking about before the episode started, like Stock Growers still has all of our archived newsletters. And I just love going back and seeing like the issues in the cattle industry are
Very
history
similar.
repeats itself. Unfortunately for the cattle industry, but it is so interesting seeing people talk about their life back in the day and how similar and also different we are still to this day. So this book, I'll get you a copy of it before you leave. But that book is amazing. I love it so much.
Well, hasn't the Stock Growers also produced some really significant publications where they've listed all the brands?
I don't know. I have not.
State?
Probably.
I have not heard of that in my tenure, but that's not saying that we absolutely have not done that.
Yeah.
I know we have another anniversary style book that's obviously a little bit smaller than this one that is, I think, more historical about Stock Growers. I have it in my office right now, but it is like falling to pieces. So I have like 1 or 2 copies, but I'll show you that when we get done.
Okay.
But yeah, I've never heard of an entire brands list, but that would be interesting.
But we learn things all the time about the association because it's so
been-
old, and
yes.
we're surprised. We're like,
Been around
okay,
a long time.
yeah.
Well, and we too, like, even in our office, like, I kind of take for granted sometimes, like, even some of the photos that you can see in the background of this image, but, like, we have some on this wall. That weird gun over there in the corner. For our listeners, you're not going to be able to see this, but I could maybe put a picture up.
Should I
It looks
display?
like it has been used to dig.
Yeah, well, it is a very old gun. The funny part is like I find stuff even in our office or our storage shed all the time where I'm like, where's this coming from? So that gun has a plaque on it that apparently is from that gun is from the Battle of the Bighorn.
Really?
And we were like, why is this just sitting in our closet? So
It
we
was
had
left up against a tree, right, or something.
I would have to reread it, but
Maybe-
it was
maybe
given
I'm telling
to us.
lies.
Yeah, it was given to us as a gift, and then somebody just like put it in one of our storage closets, like wrapped it in newspaper at the time, and then I found it one day, and I was like, what is it? Like, what is this? And so we opened it. We had a historian look at it and stuff, and I think it is authenticated, but not super duper like valuable or anything like that. So we were just like, it is truly crazy, like the amount of stuff that Stock Growers has been involved with, accumulates. People just give us because it relates similarly to us. So yeah, it's very interesting.
But that kind of reminds me too of like, we're on a tangent now, but like, well, even like you said, you get phone calls, people asking you questions about brands, or we get pictures from people. I think the other day someone sent a picture and they're like, I just found this check my dad wrote for dues in the 1950s and never sent. I mean, we get stuff like that too, where people are like, oh, my great grandpa, and I had no idea, and he died, and we're going through this, and we found his award he got from the Stock Growers or whatever. And so it's really, really interesting. I mean, I think like Kenny said, there's books and stuff, like I think people have really tried to like consolidate all that information, but I honestly think just like everything else in history, we're never gonna find all of it. You know, we can try.
I was gonna say, let's keep trying.
Yeah. So it's cool.
And we have in my office here in Helena, I call it the library in my office because people just like give us historical cattle industry books. And so I have just like 2 bookshelves like stacked full of history books and industry books and stuff in my office. And I think at some point, like, some staff were like, well, we should probably just get rid of that. I'm like, no.
Don't touch it.
I try not to be a hoarder except for when it comes to historical stuff. Then I can be a little bit of a hoarder.
I think
I'm
you
like,
should be.
we can't get rid of these things, so we have to keep them. But yeah, it's very interesting. And I mean, with such a historic organization, like, it's just very, almost like humbling in the sense of like, it's very cool to be one of the people that either is a part of the association or is helping keep it going through staff.
You've been entrusted with this heritage.
Yeah.
Well, and you hear stuff like that and you're like, well, like, we're small potatoes. Like, this is like me, you know, we're just like, these people have done amazing things and it's really, humbling. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
That's great. Well, I have to put in a pitch then. Don't throw stuff away. Unless you know what you're doing. And I know that sounds elitist, for lack of a different term. I don't mean to sound that way. But so you've found letters between your great-grandma and her sister on the East Coast. Was she writing during the Second World War? And what was she doing in the Second Year War? Was she writing to a young man? Homestead era, how were they surviving? They were writing letters the way we talk on the phone.
Yes.
This is how they exchanged history, their story, and there's no other way that we're going to know about their lives if we toss that in the garbage.
Yep.
One of my passions is old cookbooks.
Oh, yeah.
And especially community cookbooks.
Yes.
And they are often, when someone passes away, I want to cry. They're the first thing to go in the garbage. Well, let's stop and think about, those are women's directories. That may be the only place that a woman got her name in print if she wasn't on the social page.
Yeah.
That's such a good point.
Yeah.
And what group is she in? We know we know who she hung out with. We know that was a woman's project. Now we know to go to the newspapers to look for it. And we know what she was eating.
Yeah.
You can't beat it. Now that you can't beat.
Yeah. But even that, like, in a more nuclear sense, like a family sense, like, I think about all the rest. Like, my mom has it's a photo album, but she was putting recipe cards in it. It's absolutely falling apart. You have to like carry it with 2 hands so stuff doesn't go everywhere. I'm like, I'm gonna buy you a new one, Mom. But all the recipes of, like, you know, different grandmas and aunties and friends and my grandma's friends, my great grandma's friends, and it's like, and it's in their handwriting. And you know, one of my grandmas passed when I was 2, and I never got to know her, but we have the same birthday. And her recipes are so special, and I'm so glad we have those.
Well, you still get a piece of them. And then you think about how much culture is shared through food as well. And that's, like, unbelievable. Like, it's just unbelievable and amazing that you get to, like, share those things without knowing the person, but you still feel like you know them because of that.
Totally.
So,
and we're very much foodies in this office, so also that piece makes it really fun for us, too.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Well, we did get a little off the track.
I know.
No,
But
that's okay.
before anything else, I do want to, you mentioned getting online.
Yes.
To the brand records, and they have been digitized. They are a Montana treasure, and I'm going to encourage anybody who's interested to get online and look at them. Do not get overwhelmed. Do this with a cup of cocoa, cup of coffee, some Irish coffee, if that's needed. But just take a look at them. And if you go to the Montana History Compass, on that page you're going to click on Guides. On the next page you're going to click on Livestock Brands. And on that next page, so you've gone to 1, 2, 3. Now you're on the 4th page, and you have a choice of access or a searching guide. So access is going to take you to the Poindexter or brand, and you're going to see 2 different kinds of directories. And have I said this before? Our ancestors were amazing people, but there are 2 directories here. One is by the brand or mark, because let's say you've got some crazy bunch of steers in the corn, but you don't know whose brand that is. And so you find the brand on one of these pages, and that will take you to the different pages that has the record itself.
Nice.
And then the other is that written, and it hasn't changed much, that written record. And there are some, it looks overwhelming, but folks, it's, call the Historical Society, but don't tell them I said so. But then, if you are intrigued, on that same page, go to the searching guide. And again, sit down with a cup of coffee sometime this winter and just go through it. It seems complex, but I guarantee you, if you get the hang of it, you're going to realize that our ancestors, those folks that put those records together, were geniuses, because we can take a brand that's recorded today and we can track it down, if it existed, to that first day when Poindexter and Orr and 155 other brands were recorded.
Wow.
Now that is amazing.
That is amazing.
Yes.
They came up with a system that is eternal, for lack of a different term.
So, and maybe you don't know the answer to this, but I feel like you probably do. Do other states have this robust and extensive of a record system?
Oh, I've been asked that before, and I have no idea.
Yeah.
I've got enough in my brain.
Well,
Montana.
totally. But I was just thinking, like,
cookbooks.
maybe we're really unique in that sense, and people had foresight that other people didn't have. I don't know, but
yeah, that's a really good question.
Yeah.
And I've had people who reported, well, I think Wyoming does this, blah 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 blah. And quite honestly, I haven't cared enough.
No,
about
that's
the
okay.
other
That's okay.
states
I was just
to ask.
I was just trying to hype Montana up.
Yeah,
make
like
sure.
you said, you have enough to worry about in Montana. There's so much history here.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
no, I totally get that.
So, I guess switching gears a little bit,
bet.
still on the brands topic, but
Okay.
so we've obviously talked about stock growers and history, but like I kind of want to know, what role did stock growers play in formalizing the brand system? I mean, it sounds like maybe it was formalized before us, but I do think there's been obviously work done since then. And then also in that same vein, and the same thing with stock growers and history, like how did that all come together, brands, stock growers, and then like formalizing law around livestock law specifically?
Yeah.
Can you kind of paint that picture and tie it all together? That was a very long-winded question. I apologize.
And I understand what you're talking about. And there have been articles written about that. And I have read a couple of them, but I couldn't repeat them to save my soul. I'm sorry.
Again, you have so much information like in there. I don't know how you remember half of it.
Well, we'll have to do a probably a multi-part episode series of like the formation of Montana stock growers, the middle, and like where we're currently at, because there is just so much history. But I guess my question for you is, like, what did the early days look like in brands and it being a law enforcement tool because of the vigilantism that was going on at the time? Did that help the contention that was going on at the time? Did it confuse people? Or like, how impactful were brands to the law and order of the time?
Oh boy. My impression, and I would love to talk to someone who's knowledgeable about this, but when you look at the laws are evolving as Montana's evolving. It's first we are recording at the county level. Oh, That's not working. Now we're going to record at the state level and have auxiliary offices. And then, oh, wait a minute, the open range has some obstacles, has some issues. We've got to address this. That's 1885. But I don't think that the livestock commissioners were created. I'll have to pause and look that up. I'll come back to that. And to me, that's when you start realizing that there are some issues. As far as the early vigilantes, I know I've never read anything about cattle being involved in cattle rustling and stuff. That was all about gold and some nasty people and some people who wanted to make things safer, and I'll just have to leave it at that. But by 1885, brands are a big deal, and you've got livestock officers, for lack of a different term. But it all evolved before that. One of the, again, how Montana grew, so 1911 was the first time, you figure they started issuing brands in 1873. 1911 is the height of the homestead era. And all of a sudden, everybody that comes to Montana wants their own brand. But
Similar to today.
They had not, the legislature and the brand office had not had an update since they started. They didn't know if the lazy K hanging Y left rib was still being used,
Right.
or the box brand on left hip. And so that is the first re-record, 1911.
Very
but it's
interesting.
in result of the fact that there's a huge influx of people coming to Montana, and it's oops. This has to be done.
You better organize this a bit better.
Exactly. And then 1922, there's another re-record, and that sets then the law that we're going to do this every 10 years because we have to know which brands have fallen out of use. So all of these are good questions, and I'm going to have to do some reading, quite honestly,
We'll have
to
you
find
back
some
on it.
answers.
I'm so
Yeah.
So, kind of in closing, what is something that you wish people would understand or appreciate more, either about specifically brands or the larger Montana history?
Oh, that's really good.
Or, I think we talked about this a little bit, but like a topic that people should type
Yeah,
into
that's
Google right now.
crucial to our history, but nobody talks about it.
Yeah.
But nobody
what would that
talks
be?
about it.
An underrated, low-key topic.
Yeah.
An underrated, low-key topic. Well, there are, I wonder if I can find them. There are brands coming out of the allotment era where control of livestock are taken out of the hands of individual Native Americans. And I think it's Indian Department. I will look those up in a moment. And that I wish more people would pay attention to that type of thing, because that's such a crucial part. What went on the reservations before reservations, such a crucial part of our history, and it really gets lost in the fray. The next thing, though, is for those people who are living in the middle of Billings, or I'm trying to think, Missoula. These brands are your history too.
Yeah.
Right.
For the stockmen who have lived on their places for years, or have ancestors, these are just automatically part of your heritage.
Yeah.
But the stories these brands tell and the evolution of the law, first we've got the influx from, believe it or not, the first cattle in Montana came from the West. Came from the West. And then we do have the cattle drives up from Texas. By the way, let's see, Nelson Story's cattle that he brought up in 1866. The brand is really funky. It's like a yoke on a pole.
Okay.
And actually, it's called a T yoke, I think.
Interesting.
And he does eventually get that under his name in 1880, I think. But he purchased them in Texas and brought them up. Then we go through the homestead era, the allotment era. The ranches go through a lot of transition in the 70s and the 80s, and we see that in them. And now there is an interest in, say, genealogists
Yeah.
would often call from out of state. Well, my great-grandpa, had cattle on his homestead. I want to know what his brand is. So it's now a symbol of we've been here,
Yeah.
Right.
for lack of a different term.
Yeah.
They are part of our heritage, whether we come from ranching roots or not. I had uncles that did. I can't lay claim to anything like that, but they're just one of those things that you see all over. One of the things I like to use in Billings, if you ever heard of Peter Yagan and all of his advertisement was the PY. You can't get away from him.
Yeah.
And he was a rancher, and he sold insurance. But they're just a great fun
Yeah.
bit of history.
Very true.
So
They are.
Yeah.
They are.
Well, and go ahead, Ellie.
Well, I was going to ask another question. Is that okay? Or are we out of
Yeah.
time?
No,
Okay.
we're just fine.
Okay. Well, I guess I have multiple questions, but so as you were talking, I was just thinking, and then you started talking about the cattle drives from Texas, and I was wondering, and this is just my lack of knowledge on like the timelines of things, but were those drives part of the push to need to create a formalized system because more and more cattle were coming into the state and there weren't fences, and then like even maybe the range wars conversation and all of that? Or were we as Montana like organized, had a brand system? Obviously it evolves, but by the time those drives north were happening?
Good question. Now there were different. So 1866, it was really early for a drive. Okay, many of them came later, and Teddy Blue Abbott wrote a book, and his book is, what is it? We Pointed Them North, and anybody interested needs to read his book. But as far as I know, a lot had to do with the fact that there was so much grass up here.
Yeah.
Especially once we start looking at the cattle drives into eastern Montana.
Right.
And there were trailheads. And the XIT, which is 10 in Texas,
Yep.
had a lot to do, and I think that stands for 10 counties in Texas. It's something 10 in Texas.
Yeah.
But they had a presence here for quite some time.
Yes.
And they they had corporate offices and stuff up here. So it was organization, as far as I'm concerned, for that corporate organization to get cattle fattened up
Yeah.
and to the market. There's so much folklore and stuff around that I'm hesitant to say much more. I don't
'cause
have enough.
Do we know what's true and what's the story?
Yeah,
absolutely.
I would encourage people. There's a historian that did a lot of work on the XIT sometime in the last 15 years, and their corporation.
That's interesting.
Get onto JSTOR if you can,
Okay.
and do XIT in Montana, see what comes up.
All I know about the XIT in Montana is I'm pretty sure that's who Bob Fudge worked for, and he was a cowboy. And there's songs about him that have been repopularized by new country
Coulter
artist
Wall.
Coulter
Yeah.
Wall repopularized that song.
Yeah.
His version is not the version I grew up listening to, and so I don't like to listen to it. But
I love his version.
and then I grew up listening to the Ian Tyson version,
Yeah.
so that's what I was used to. But then there's books and everything on
Yeah.
it. It's very fascinating. So that's kind of the small amount of my knowledge of those drives north, but it was the XIT and stories about, crossing the river in Glendive and, just things like that. And it is another really interesting piece of our history.
It is another interesting piece. And getting back to the sheer labor involved.
Absolutely.
And
the hard work. I mean, it's
yes.
unimaginable now.
It is unimaginable. Yeah.
I think about that a lot of like, how do people get this done? Like,
Right?
when we were talking about like butte and mining, like we actually just took our intern Kelsey, who's in the room, but you can't see her. We took her to Butte to do the underground mining tour. And I was just like, how did people get this done?
I know. It's a miracle.
Yeah, like
It's
I
a
get
miracle.
it now. Like we've got heavy machinery, we've got the technology, but like back in the day, they really had to have some like willpower to get that done.
Oh,
I'm like,
yeah.
I'm a weakling, I guess, but yeah.
Well, as we wrap up, anything else you want to share?
No, this has been so much fun.
It's been so
We
fun.
had a blast.
I know.
Thank you very much. I do maybe just the ladies here that interviewed me are not responsible for any of my mistakes.
Don't also hold our own words against us. Yeah, I don't know what we're talking about either.
We're just chatting. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing your insights.
Thank you.
I
Again,
know
this
our
has been
members are
delightful.
going to love it.
Yeah. And I just remembered we were talking about the Charlie Russell painting earlier.
Yeah.
So Stock Growers owns the Waiting on a Chinook
Yes.
version.
yeah.
And that was the one that was mailed. And then he painted the larger Last of the 5,000,
You're exactly
which
right,
is
yeah.
the most famous
Yes.
of his paintings.
Yes.
So, or I think like I said, I don't know what I'm
He
talking
has
about.
so many famous paintings, but
But one of his most famous paintings was The Last of the 5,000. So, yeah.
Anyway.
Go to the... I'm going to plug for you.
Yeah.
But go to the Montana Historical Society. We have a new building opening for it, hopefully very soon.
That's the museum.
Yeah, the museum. And then, contact the Montana Historical Society with any of your questions. Contact Montana Stock Growers, the Montana Department of Livestock for brands. So, we're really excited to have you on. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for doing
For those
this.
questions, contact the Research Center.
Research Center.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we can probably link the information
Yes,
as well.
we
on
can
that.
link
We like to
a
do
lot
that
of
so
stuff.
people can,
Oh, good.
Yeah.
if they're listening while they're driving or whatever, they can
Yeah.
go back and
Yeah.
find the stuff. So,
Yeah.
Very fun.
all right. Well, listeners, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to podcast. Please subscribe everywhere you listen to podcasts. We'll see you guys next week.
Yeah. Bye, guys.